welcome back to another episode of the Sad Dad Games podcast and another episode of Eric's Indie Corner. My name's Eric.
I'm Shan.
I'm Tucker. And alone compared to you guys.
Alone. As you can see, Shan is here with me today. He's visiting North Carolina because he just missed me so much and he's just hanging out.
Oh my gosh, that's where I'm at?
Yeah.
I took a wrong turn in the driveway this morning.
Albuquerque.
There's
There's a nice Bugs Bunny joke.
Can't do Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Wabbit season.
That's Elmer.
It's Elmer Fudd.
Yeah, but they fight together.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do. That was a bad Bugs Bunny though because it was a different character.
but I was
literally
I was
could not be worse.
Gotcha.
Well, no. Well, does Bugs Bunny jump in on that one, or is it just?
He goes, "What's up, Doc?"
And Elmer.
No, it's Daffy and Elmer and Bugs Bunny.
Oh, so it is all three of them.
Yeah, it's all three.
And then he flips. That's why he was in my head. Okay.
We figured it out, you guys. We got to the bottom of it.
I often find myself thinking about Elmer Fudd.
That was Bugs
That's
Bunny.
Bugs Bunny.
That's fine.
I thought that's what we were doing, Bugs Bunny.
All right, so today, this is another episode of Eric's Indie Corner. We are going to be talking about basically what Eric's Indie Corner is I pick a game, an indie game that I love and I want to talk about, and then we talk about it. So today's game is Fast Fusion. It is a hyper-fast zero-gravity racer developed by Shin'en Multimedia, released on June 5th, 2025, so it's a pretty recent one.
All right, Shin'en. How have I heard that publisher's name before?
So Shin'en we covered one of their other games a little while ago called The Tourist, spelled with a Y.
That's it.
They are also, the Fast series is kind of like their big series that they do. They had a Fast Racing Neo for the Wii U. They did Fast RMX that launched with the Switch, and now they have Fast Fusion that launched with the Switch too. And so Shin'en Multimedia is a very cool indie studio. They're always on like the cutting edge of technology, really pushing hardware to its limits. And so it's fun to see them as a launch title for the Switch too, because they're really like pushing the limits of that console, at least of what we know that it's capable of so far. But it's a really nice looking game that runs really well on Switch too. And so it's a good like a little technical showpiece for the system. It's a very nice looking game.
Yeah, we'll think that this is the limit. And then like at the last 6 months of the console, we'll get something like Naughty Dog to come out and like show us, wait, this is what the Switch can do.
Yeah, they'll start doing crazy stuff. Yeah. That's how it is for most console generations, is towards the end is when you start really squeezing every bit of power out of that console. So it's exciting to see what kind of stuff they'll do with the Switch 2 in the coming months and years.
Speaking of which, Death Stranding tomorrow, but like you saw it looks like a tech demo. Some of the stills and stuff coming out for that game.
So
it looks amazing.
Good.
That game
Super
is
excited.
Gorgeous, but like, didn't they port Death Stranding 1 to the Switch? So
I don't think so. They ported it to mobile devices, like you can get it on your
is that
phone.
what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember because I saw it on my phone. I was like, that can't be real, but it is. You can get it on your phone.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully they end up getting these down because I know Decima can scale pretty well, right?
Yeah, that would be cool. That would for sure be my preferred way of playing big, large games like Death Stranding is on handheld. I love playing games on handheld. So
you can do it on your phone, Eric.
I could do it on my phone. That's what I should do. Get rid of my PS5 and just play all my games on my phone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Mobile
it's the same
devices.
thing. Just
Mobile
as powerful.
gaming is fantastic.
Yeah.
Said no one ever.
Said no one ever. All right, so in Eric's Indie Corner, we're going to break it down into a few little categories. We're going to talk about story, then gameplay, and then visuals and sound, and just kind of chat a little bit about what is fun about this game. So story, there is literally no story. Gameplay, gameplay is there is no context. There's no context for anything. There are no racers inside of the car. At least there's no way to be made aware of them. There's no like, why are we racing? What is the goal of the racing? It's literally just, here are some racing machines. Here are some racetracks. Go race. It's a very pure and simple arcade racer. No story at all, as far as I can tell.
Okay, so like the Fast and Furious franchise.
So like yes, exactly like that.
Yeah, feel free to just add your own story to it,
Yeah.
like what you do when you're watching the Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah, you just whatever you think is happening, that's probably right.
Yeah.
Just fill in the holes with your imagination. That's how you get from point A to B.
Yeah. So story is really just nothing to talk about there. But gameplay in this game is very fun. It's fast, frantic, and very, very fun.
Leave the cough in.
Yeah, sorry. So gameplay is fast and frantic and very, very, it's very arcadey, very fun. So basically you play these flying machines similar to F-Zero. It's basically just F-Zero. But you go in these super fast races, racing against other racers, and it can be pretty challenging at sometimes. There's several different cups similar to like Mario Kart where it's, 50cc, 100cc, and 150cc, except for in this one it's subsonic, hypersonic, and then supersonic. Subsonic, supersonic, and then hypersonic. But they're just different speed levels and difficulty levels that you can play all the courses in. There are only 12 tracks, which is, not a lot of tracks, but it's also not a very expensive game. And so for the price, it's pretty hard to argue with that. But it has an interesting mechanic with the gameplay where there are coins scattered along the track. You gather those coins and that fills up your boost meter. And so you're in a constant ebb and flow of like managing your boost meter and trying to decide if like, all right, is it worth it to turn wide and get these coins to get my boost? Or should I try to take this tighter corner and edge out my competition that way? So there's a nice like decision-making element there, as well as there are like boost strips along the ground that are different colors. There's orange ones and blue ones. And at the press of a button, you can swap the mode of your machine to be either red or blue. So if your machine is blue and you go over a blue boost pad, you'll get a significant boost. But if there's a blue boost pad and your machine is orange at the time you haven't switched it, then it'll slow you down significantly. And so it adds another fun wrinkle of like making sure that your machine is the right color for the boost pads to try to maximize your speed and get ahead of your competition. So I like that extra little wrinkle. Makes it very fun to, it's just a fun little extra wrinkle so that it's not just going fast and surviving.
There are so many wrinkles in this game.
So many wrinkles. It's a very wrinkly
Practically
game.
an octogenarian.
Yeah. It's octogenarian, the game. It's full of wrinkles. And then this is another really cool part about the game, is there are 15 racing machines. I keep calling them racing machines because they're not really cars. They're like floating, but they're cars. You have 15 different cars. But as the name would suggest, you're able to fuse these different vehicles together. And so there is a ridiculous number of combinations that you can make. And so it combines their stats in an interesting way. Like it doesn't amalgamate their stats. It like increases stats that are weak for one machine and weak for the other. So if you have one machine that has a really high boost and then really low acceleration, and then another machine that has really high acceleration and really low boost, it'll take the best stats from both of those machines and kind of max it out to the level that the best one is at. And so not only that, but you can pick a machine and then pick a machine to fuse it to. But if you do those same two machines and pick them in an opposite order, it will fuse a different machine. And so there's a dizzying amount of like different machine combos and different different like racing machines that you can unlock just by fusing things in different patterns and ways. And so that's super fun, really cool. And also as you race, you unlock a currency so that you can buy these machines and buy new racetracks and stuff as you go on. So there's a nice little progression to it. It doesn't just dump all the content on you at once, which is nice. It's another fun wrinkle.
Yeah, there's a website, a random fan-made website that does this with Pokemon, where you just pick two random Pokemon and it just fuses them together and you get a new monster.
It's basically that. Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. They were like, what's that Pokemon site and how do we put it into our game?
It's Pikachu is the Pokemon.
It's Pikachu.
It's Jigglypuff seen from above. That's a deep cut.
That's a good one. So yeah, the gameplay is fairly simple but really engaging, lots of fun. It's really good for like pick up and play kind of stuff. They have different modes with Championship, which is where you race through several races in succession, sort of like a Grand Prix mode in Mario Kart. There's multiplayer modes. There's a superhero mode, which is very similar to like F-Zero's racing modes, where your boost meter is shared with your health meter. So if you use too much boost and you bump into another car, your car explodes and then you're just done. The race is over. And so that one's like a high stakes racing mode. And then they have obviously time attack modes, which are a good way to give you some extra stuff to engage with. So yeah, gameplay is very fun. Not super complicated, but it doesn't really have to be. It's an engaging and fun game that way. Visuals and sound, as I kind of touched on earlier, visuals are really, really nice. There is some like mild blurriness in some of the higher resolution settings that Shin'en has said that they're working on patches to fix. And so, but when a game moves this fast, it's really hard to notice those things outside of like still frames. To my eye, I didn't really notice anything until I was reading up on some stuff about this game that said that there were some issues there. And I was like, oh, I didn't even notice. It looked really sharp and smooth to me. So
yeah, I think this is how the internet works, especially the PC master race, is that they'll actually just watch an influencer break down the stats and performance for a game, and then they'll be like, yeah, I totally noticed that, and then they'll all start circle jerking each other.
Too.
Definitely, I'm one of you guys. I see the same amount of things that you see. I'm that elite. Like, I just like the ghosting problem on the Switch screen. It's like, I've never noticed that, but I bet now that everybody knows about it, it's like, yeah, we all see it. Totally.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not something that I was super aware of, but whatever. So visuals, very solid. No complaints from me. It has really great weather effects and lighting. The lighting in particular is very nice. It really feels like a next gen game for the Switch 2. Very nice looking game, especially when you're moving at speed, when you're just blasting through these levels. There's a really nice motion blur applied to everything, running at a nice smooth 60 frames per second that just makes the game feel smooth and responsive and really visually interesting. And this is a kind of a step up from their previous Fast game, Fast RMX for the Switch 1, which is also a great game. But this one feels like the tracks all are a little more grounded. Like they seem more like they're part of an environment or an area. In the Fast RMX, it could kind of feel just like floating tracks that they tried to build something around, like some little set pieces and environments and stuff. But in this one, it really feels like the tracks are part of an environment and they're a little more immersive that way. And so very nice visuals, really nothing to complain about there.
Back to the 30 and 60 there is like a 60 FPS option, obviously, but you said there's motion blur. Is there an option to turn off for those people that get really weird about motion blur?
I don't know if there is or not. I don't know why you would want to turn it off for this game.
Some people are that way.
I can't imagine what this game would look like without motion blur. It'd probably give you a headache just because of how fast everything is moving.
No, but it's really, I don't know the exact argument that they're making. I think it's really just like, if you're doing post-processing like motion blur, then you are distorting the data that you need to hit your eyes to be able to perform like an elite gamer. It's one of the, it's people like that, It's like, no, I need it at 200 FPS. I need no motion blur because I need to be able to pwn somebody from across. It's people like that. Yeah.
So I don't know is the answer. I can't imagine getting rid of motion blur and how that could improve this game in any way. I think it's a necessary part.
I'm a fan of motion blur personally.
Just because you're moving so fast, you're driving so fast that this game without motion blur why would you do that? Yeah. So. And also a fun thing is that there are a frankly absurd amount of graphic modes. There are 5 different graphics modes, ranging from.
That seems excessive.
Yeah, it's too many. It's more than you need. I don't know why they did 5, but that's what they did. So it ranges from like a native 4K at 30 frames per second, and then all the way up to 60 frames per second, but at 1080p, which seems weird because there's also a 60 frames per second with 4K, like an upscaled 4K that to my eye looks exactly the same as the 30 frames per second one. So like the ultra quality mode that plays at 30 frames per second, don't know why that exists. The quality mode that plays at 60 frames per second looks exactly the same and has twice, like double the frame rate. So that's the way to go in my humble opinion, for sure. But there's tons of options for people who want it. So there you go.
And I think people just like want options so that they feel seen.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with having. I'd rather have too many options than not enough. Like they want to add 5 different visual modes. I think that's great. I think that they could have got away with 2, maybe 3, and been just fine. But go nuts.
No,
do it.
If they just did like performance mode, like everybody would get mad that they had no options. And then if they did 2 modes, performance and fidelity, they'd be like, well, we're all going to choose performance, but thank you for the option.
Yeah.
So I felt with Spider-Man games, it was like, this option's nice. And
who wants to play this at 30 frames per second?
But I didn't do
Swinging
it.
around at 60 FPS is the way to go for sure.
I mean, they have great motion blur, some of the best in business, but yes, 60. Once I turned it on,
it's hard to go back.
But the ray tracing, once you can get both, it's great.
In Spider-Man 2, they have both. It's ray tracing and 60 frames per second. So Best of both worlds. All right. And then, as we know that I like to do, I didn't practice the composer's name before we do this. So who's ready for me to butcher this? So music composed by Francisco Cerda is punchy, energetic, and an absolute delight. It's very, very good, super fun, really great. Big fan. It's suitably punchy, gets your blood pumping, and just feels like you're in the future racing these super fast machines, in space and on other crazy tracks and stuff like that. So big fan of the soundtrack. Very well done. And then another fun fact about this game is that the announcer voice, like the person who counts down like the 3, 2, 1, go, and then
it's Troy Baker.
At the end is Troy Baker. Yeah. If only. Man, Troy Baker should be in more things. No, but it is not Troy Baker, unfortunately. But it is the same person who did the voice recordings for all of the English F-Zero games, which I thought was like a fun. It's an F-Zero game that's not made by Nintendo. Nintendo should just have these guys make a proper F-Zero game. People want F-Zero to come back. Shin'en clearly knows what they're doing with this kind of game, so I think that they would be delighted to make an F-Zero game because they've got. It's basically just an F-Zero game.
They could just do an asset swap.
Yeah, they could just do an asset swap. Add some more tracks, boom, F-Zero game.
Just a F-Zero at the beginning, at the start screen. That's all you need. Game's done.
That's all you need. They're basically done, yeah. So, yeah, big fan of this game. Any thoughts before we close it out? It's kind of a shorter episode, but it's a shorter game, so.
I've never played F-Zero. So what were like the core F-Zero games that everybody's in love with that I missed out on?
So I was never a huge F-Zero fan either, but there is an F-Zero for the N64 that I can't remember the name of. And then the one that everybody really loves is there was a bunch of F-Zero games for like the Game Boy Advance, and then there was the original one for the Super Nintendo. I think there were like 3 for Game Boy Advance. But the one that everybody really, really loves is F-Zero GX for the GameCube, which is one of the NSO, like the Switch Online GameCube games that launched with the Switch 2. So everyone who has a Switch 2 and an online membership has access to that game. If you have even a passing interest, if you're interested in F-Zero, you've already played that game. I don't know why I'm talking to you about it. That's the big one. That's the popular, and it's the last mainline F-Zero game that we've got. It's like 20 years old. That's the last time we got an F-Zero game.
I know. I think I watched a video about Modern Vintage Gamer breaking down F-Zero on Nintendo Switch Online, and the way that they drop packets to sync up your gameplay can be a little frustrating because it causes the lagging while you're playing when this game craves like that constant 60 FPS for smooth playing. But what is what it is. It's nobody goes into the Nintendo Switch Online expecting perfect performance. It's pretty cheap.
It just kind of is what it is. I think it works really well for like Zelda games and slower paced games and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I'm there for. Is I want to play my old Zelda games. So. Yeah.
Well, this is great. I already can't wait for Too Fast 2 Fusion.
Yeah. Too Fast 2 Fusion. That's going to be the launch title for the Switch 3. Well, we're going to go ahead and close it out then. So Fast Fusion is it's a fairly short game. If you just go through the cups, like the championship mode, and don't do anything else, you could probably get through those in about 2 hours. But there's lots of extra stuff to engage with if you want to unlock all of the tracks on all of the difficulty levels, if you want to unlock all of the different cars, and you'll have to play a little bit more to get some more currency to unlock those cars. So I'd say between 2 and like 15 to 20 hours, depending on how much time you want to put into this. But it also is, I do appreciate that the currency comes at like a pretty reasonable rate. It's never like, I didn't feel like I had to grind a lot to like unlock cars and unlock levels and stuff. It's pretty reasonable with how it doles out the currency. So that's always nice. And it's only available on the Switch 2, console exclusive for just the Switch 2. And it is only $14.99, which is an absolute steal. Super budget game, but the quality that you get here is very nice. Feel like it probably could have gotten away with a $25 or maybe even $30 price tag. It's a good one.
Now, I remember the Tourist being like crazy optimized, having flawless frames. Yeah. Is that similar to this? It's also, that was a really small game.
Yeah.
As far as size goes. Did they pull it all off again?
Yeah, so this one is still fairly optimized. This is Shin'en Multimedia's first game that is larger than 1 gig. So they were able to really, really optimize their previous games really well. And even still this one, it's like 3.5 or like 3.4 or something like that. File size is still very small, so very optimized and solid stuff.
Okay.
All right, everybody. I think that's going to do it for this week of Eric's Indie Corner. Make sure to join our regular episodes every Monday. Eric's Indie Corner on Thursdays. Check us out wherever you can find podcasts, and follow us on Instagram for my dadish scores. All right, bye everybody.
You're still doing that?
Bye.
Yep, I'm still doing that. I just reached day 200.
Wow.
It's very exciting.
Oh my gosh. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Outro. Bleepity doof, bleepity bloopity blow.